This is AJ Wachtel. Welcome to my podcast, Wachtelligence, where I discuss with my guests the past, present, and future of the local and national music scene with a focus on Boston and New England. Today's episode, Steve Cataldo, the Nervous Eaters. Once an originals band, now a supergroup, is about the legendary life and career of one of the most talented singer, songwriter, guitarist, frontmen to ever be part of the Boston music scene. Formed in Beverly on the North Shore, the band's first gig was at the Rat in Kenmore Square during the initial invasion of punk music in the late 70s. Hard rockin', riff blasting, tongue-in-cheek. The Nervous Eaters were like the Rolling Stones of Boston and helped define Boston underground garage punk rock during that great era. And now, 45 years later, the band has just released their latest 10-song CD, Monsters and Angels, and Cataldo has what some are calling a supergroup with Brad Hallen on bass and vocals. He's from Duke, Robillard, the Joneses back in the day, and now with the Amplifier Heads, led by the Stopper Sal Baglio. Adam Sherman on second guitar and vocals from the Souls and Private Lightning, and David McLean from Willie Alexander's Boom Boom Band behind the kit. The new album songs are fucking fantastic. Part Cars, part Jay Giles Band, part New York Dolls. Bluesy and melodic music with a hard edge. It's with great pleasure I say, welcome to Wachtelligence, Steve, Adam, and David.
Thank you. It's awfully nice of you.
Okay, let's talk about the late 70s Boston music scene. What were some of the bands that, were around that you were competing with? DMZ with Jeff Conley and Dave Robinson from the Cars, Jeff Conley from the Liars and the Real Kids, John Felice. What other bands were around?
The Pest, Willie,
Richie Parsons.
Yeah, Richie Parsons, that's for sure. And Third Rail, Mark Thor, God bless him.
Thunder Train,
yeah, Mark Bell.
yeah.
Thunder Train. And Harlequin was there. They were far out, ahead of their time, actually.
And the Atlantics.
And the Atlantics, oh, how can we forget the Atlantics? What great songs. Those guys were, they should have been a national group. Well, they were kind of, but should have exploded much farther than they did. What a group.
Well, you're from the North Shore. You're from Beverly. Wasn't the club Grover's up there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a lot of the Boston groups there.
What clubs did you go to as a kid?
Well, in the Cape, there wasn't a whole lot. We had the Agogo, which everybody else was growing Beatle haircuts, but he still had the spit curl, kooky, let me a comb cut. And his girlfriend had like gold lame peg pants, and they were quite a unit. But the Agogo brought in all kinds of groups, so we got a great chance to see the Animals, Sam the Sham, and it had a lot of Boston groups like Lovelace Lads, the Bold, the Ones, a lot of great Boston groups, Eden's Children, stuff like that.
Your guitar influences at the time, among many others, but lesser known to the public, I think, were Link Wray, the Chicago Blues greats, Beck Page and Clapton. Who else?
Mike Bloomfield, Muddy Waters, Hubert Sumlin, the Ventures in the early days. Everybody learned their instrumentals. So that's what I can think of at the moment.
Well, the Nervous Eaters formed in 1973 as one of Boston's first punk bands. What punk bands did you like at the time?
Well, Sex Pistols, everybody liked that. And the New York Dolls. television and talking heads. I was out in California at Berkeley Records, I think it was, and they were talking about the Talking Heads, that they would become a supergroup, and he was right. I don't know. What about you guys?
Punk band.
Punk bands.
Yeah. Well, television was big for me. I love television. Plasmatics. We're just talking about Wendy Williams.
Yeah,
and,
she was great.
Yeah, they kind of turned New York on its ass, and that, it was kind of a big deal. So the CBGBs in general, I'm trying to think of it's Tough Darts.
Yeah.
Dead Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dead Boys.
Yeah.
So we played with a lot of those groups because Jimmy Harrell, God bless him, was managing us. So we got to open for many, many groups. Tough Darts, Richard Hell.
You beat me to the punch. I was going to talk about Jimmy and Magic too. But first, how'd you get the name Nervous Eaters?
Well, we practiced at Jeff Wilkinson's house. He was the drummer. Sometimes we later changed to Rob's basement because his parents went to work during the day, so we could play in the basement all day, and they didn't bother us. But Jeff's parents didn't either. His mother was great, Florence Wilkinson, and she would always feed us, making sandwiches and soup and cookies and stuff, and we'd come up one at a time. And after a while, she said to us, "Why don't you guys come up at the same time? You're a bunch of nervous eaters." So the name stuck. Every time we went up, we said, "So nervous eaters." So probably as a tribute to Florence, we came up with the name.
Hey, before that, you were called the Rhythm Assholes, and you backed up Willie Alexander on his single Kerouac and On Stage. Is that where you met David?
Which David? I mean, our
Behind
David?
you. Yeah.
I met David through Willie. And a little before then, too, I think.
Yeah.
And you guys were by yourself. And
Well, it's kind of a funny story with Steve and I because, we grew up like 5 minutes from each other, and, and we were just a little bit out of sequence in school, so we really never met. And we met in Boston and, at an audition, actually, and then, we were out doing gigs. I was playing with Willie. He had, obviously had the Eaters. And so, and then, about 8 years ago, fate had it that we just sort of, lived 5 minutes from each other again after all these years. And, I went over one day, to just kind of like kick around with Steve. And, I've been playing with him ever since. It's been a blast.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Dave's a hard-working drummer. Let me tell you, puts a lot of time in.
Your first gig was as the Nervous Eaters was at the Rat. Now here we get to Jimmy Harold. You guys are on the live at the Rat, the second album, aren't you? How'd that happen?
I don't know if we're on the second record because they brought in these boards, a mixing board and all the gear, and they had it upstairs in a room we used to practice in. So they recorded the first one, and while the gear was there, they recorded us separately. And there were, one was WBCN, and they recorded that, and then WAAF with Ken Shelton, they recorded that. We did our 45s, our first 45s, at Northern Studios in Maynard, Massachusetts. Jesse Henderson, later with Rick Ocasek. But that was a great studio. It was gigantic. Everybody went out there. And unfortunately, the masters for almost every group, I don't know why he didn't want to store them there, but they went to this little old guy someplace in his garage, and they just rusted away. to dust. And it's really a drag because we recorded more than the 4 songs that are on plastic.
So how did Jimmy become your manager?
He just heard us all the time there when we opened for other bands, like all the other groups that played there. And we just hit it off like this, and it was just fate.
I had him on the episode last year before he died. Tell me what you think his legacy in Boston is.
He, among a few others, propelled the scene, the Boston scene, which was happening simultaneously at a lot of major cities throughout the United States. It just was a time. Everybody had their own scene, Atlanta, New York, Boston. But Jimmy was a good guy. He had a little deal going with Hilly and CBGB's. And we went, as a group that he managed, we went back and forth from CBGB's. They'd send some groups down, and they'd send some Boston groups back up to New York. So that was our introduction to New York to Jimmy.
Your first song, "Talk to Loretta," came out in '77 on his record, on his label, Rat Label. That's and then your second single, the punk classic "Just Head," came out in '79, and in '81, this is what I want to ask you: the Fools covered "Talk to Loretta." What did you think about the Fools? Instead of covering "Just Head" or one of your other songs that they really could have had a lot of fun with, they did a heavy rocking song, "Talk to Loretta." What do you think of their version? Very different.
Well, they're great musicians and they're great entertainers, and that's just the way they arranged it. Probably Richie arranged it because that's the way they play. So that was their style, and that's what they did with it.
You had in your band, you had local legend Jonathan Paley from the Paley Brothers, and you had local legend, the Cars you mentioned before, Rick Ocasek, producing your 10-song demo, and then you were signed with the Cars record label Elektra, and the first album, the self-titled, came out in 1980, produced by Harry Maslin, who also produced David Bowie's Young Americans and Station to Station album. You had Steve Cropper as a guitarist and Booker T from the MGs, who backed Otis Redding in, and you also had Nicky Hopkins from the Rolling Stones play on it. Pretty cool from a guy from Massachusetts.
Well, we scared Nicky Hopkins to death because we were big fans of him, and we kept bugging him with all these questions from the British invasion days, and he didn't even remember half the stuff. And at the end of one of the sessions, we offered him a ride back to his place, but he had us drop him off 2 or 3 blocks away from where he was going because he didn't want us to know where he lived. But a funny thing about the Fools, very quickly, is Mike and I used to live very close to each other in Ipswich, and we both wear glasses, and oftentimes we were mistaken for each other. And Mike was sick one night. They were playing at some club up in Rockport, Newburyport. And Mike couldn't make it, but he didn't want to lose the gig because it was a steady gig for him, so they asked if I would fill in. So I went up there and tried to do Mike's shtick. I imitated him. And they fell for it. Most of the night. I think I got through almost the entire night before I was discovered. So
Too bad that's not on YouTube.
They didn't have that stuff in those days.
Hey, you know, people reviewed your first album as Jay Giles, like rock and roll with Hall and Oates style soul. And, you know, I can hear that in your music today, too.
Well, we did a lot of shows with Jay Giles, and we played in some stadium in Maine. And anyways, we opened up with a song called Necessities, which was really a Jay Giles type tune. And the audience went nuts. And I think Jay Giles was worried we would wear out the audience a little. So it cut the sound back a little bit, I think. I was told. Because I was told not to walk out on the little perch that Peter Wolf goes out and does his thing on. And, of course, I didn't listen to him. And I went out there. As soon as I did, my vocal dropped about 40%.
Oh boy.
So I went back to where I was supposed to be. But they were great. They're really great guys.
Hey, I also want to mention that in '86, you recorded and released a 6-song EP, Hot Steel and Acid, with punk producer Rick Hart from Ace of Hearts label. Rick, we were just talking about Rick. Rick is a genius. What do you think about his ears?
I think he's great. He's great. We had bugged him for a long time to do something with us. And finally he relented. And he really saved our lives at that time. And we owe him a lot. He's a great guy. I love him.
Didn't they just re-release that EP in 2018 with new songs on it too?
Yeah, he did. He added a couple, and it came out in a little can. It was genius, the CD. And it's pretty cool. Sold a lot of them.
You know, I keep bringing up all these past people that you've been in the studio with just to show the tremendous support. You know, you're a superstar. You're known all over the world. And here you are still recording and still using people like in 2019. You released a record and you went to Dave Minahan from the neighborhood studio, Woolly Mammoth. That's 3 of the top producers that I just mentioned. That's incredible. What do you think about Dave Minahan's ears?
He's great. He's a great guy. We had lots of laughs. And he had a wonderful studio. I think he's changed the location of it now, I've heard. But we had a ball with Dave. He's a rock and roll producer, and we play the same kind of music, so he tuned right in on us.
You've headlined the U.S. and Europe, and you've opened for Iggy Pop, Squeeze, the Go-Go's, the Pretenders, the Police, the Split Enz, the Ramones. Do you have any plans now to take the Nervous Eaters on the road in 2023?
Yeah, I've talked to Paul McCartney and a lot of the greats, and I just told them we were kind of so busy we couldn't really go out with them. But I don't know, if somebody calls, we'll go over to their house.
Yeah.
When I was doing my research for this episode, I read that bands from the USA, from Europe, Australia, and Asia have covered your songs. What covers do you like? And what Asian band does a Steve Cataldo original?
I don't know. I get emails from them, but I couldn't tell you what the band is because it was a while ago. But they do send me their versions, and they're usually pretty good. Somebody just did Planet Fever and really nailed it. And I'm sorry Who was it anyway?
Well, that Kurt Baker did something. Was that a different tune?
No, it was Planet Fever, and I don't know if Mighty Manfred covered a tune or anything, but because he's in the Woggles or something.
Yeah.
Did they cover the tune?
I don't know for sure.
I forget, but I get emails from people that say, "Hey, check it out," and they do great jobs.
Are you getting royalty checks though?
And not from those. Actually, what was it, Nico Case?
Yeah.
She covered Loretta. And I never saw a dime, Nico. Have your manager call me.
Let's talk about your current band. You just released a CD, Monsters and Angels, on Wicked Cool Records. Okay, first the obvious. Where's the name come from?
It's off one of the lyrics in Evil Lynn. So it's zombies and sapphires, dazzled by the campfires, monsters and angels, husbands and wives. So Monsters and Angels came out of that tune, the title. If you listen to Evil Lynn.
You know, you have, yes, I do. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But, you know, I spoke to Brad, and I want to give you a quote because he's the only one not present there. And we're going to get to Adam and to David's talking too. But what Brad said is, what's special about playing with Steve? Steve is criminally unknown as a songwriter, singer, and guitar player to the world at large. His influences are deep, and that's what sets him apart from everyone else. Besides all the British invasion groups, Beatles, Animals, Stones, Kinks, Dave Clark 5, etc., he has a very deep knowledge of the blues, Southern soul, Sinatra, Louis Armstrong, Ray Charles, etc. That's why he's such a great singer. He has a very deep sense of phrasing as a result of those influences. What do you think about that?
I think he really knows his stuff. He knows what he's talking about. And he's a great bass player, too.
All right, tell me about Steve Berkowitz as your executive producer. You know, Steve Berkowitz, he's performed locally. He's a local boy that made good. You know, he was with Sony. He made it from Brookline to being head of Sony Legacy Records, and he still tours around from time to time in his band T-Blade and the Fabulous Esquires. So tell me, how did you get Steve Berkowitz involved as the executive producer?
Brad sent him a demo, and he got excited about it and sent it to little Steven, and that got the ball rolling. And a real shocker to us, we're in touch with Steve all the time, but he showed up at our gig last night. So we really shocked us to see him, and we were glad to see him. He came in with Travis.
Chandler Travis.
Chandler Travis, yes. I knew that. And they came in and it really surprised us. It was great to see him. They stayed all night, and we'll be seeing him again shortly.
You know, and you're talking about Stevie Van Zandt. You just mentioned him as the other ex-producer. He owns Wicked Cool Records, your new label, right?
Right.
Is Stevie, is he a cool guy?
Yeah. He's a cool guy. He knows everybody. He's a rock and roll historian. Knows everything about everything.
let's talk about the songs on your record. You know, I don't ever do this, but let's spend a minute on it. You have a new 10-song release out. I just want to, talk about every song and just a minute on each song. You know, they're all real radio friendly and really rocking tunes. It's incredible. It's great. Wild Eyes. You have Kelly Knapp from the Bristol starring in that. How did that happen?
Well, shoot, go ahead.
We were looking for an age-appropriate, gorgeous rock and roll queen.
And of course, they turned to you, Adam.
Yeah, they did, and we thought of Kelly, and Brad had her number, called her, she jumped all over it and said absolutely, and we were thrilled. She nailed it too.
Absolutely,
beautiful, a wonderful person too.
You know, she was on with the Bristol. She was on my album, my compilation album, Boston Gets a Grip, doing Seasons of Wither. And, you know, I didn't mention, but Brad Hallen, he was also on one of my albums. He was in he did it while he was with the Joneses under the name Torn and Frayed. And he did it on my Boston Gets Stoned album, and he did Soul Survivor. So, I mean, I go back with all you people forever. But, you know, the thing I want to mention, you know, now that I got myself plugged in, is that, you know, Wild Eyes, one of the great things about that is David McLean's pounding really drives that tune. And, you know, David, can you just tell me, you know, I just read Brad's question. Tell me what's special about playing with Steve.
Oh, well, it's kind of like, you know, the triple threat, you know, the great songs, you know, the lyrics, the guitar playing, the singing, the whole thing. It's like a force of nature. When Steve straps it on and gets up and this thing starts, it just has a vibe that's special, that's just sort of more than the sum of its parts. You know, it's extraordinary. You know, there's an energy there that, you know, isn't really anywhere else that you see. I mean, it's very, very special, and it's just inspiring. So it's you know, and now with Adam and Brad in the group, it's just like we've got this vibe going, and it's just so much fun. You know, it's a great sounding band.
Outside of your studio, we call it a supergroup. You know, the reason I keep saying supergroup, keep referring to you guys as supergroup, is because if you guys were based in New York City, right, you'd be on the cover of the Rolling Stone, don't you think?
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm doing with these guys.
All right, David, last question for you is, what's the difference between playing with the Eaters and playing with Willie Alexander and the Boom Boom Band?
So I mean, with Willie, it was always, you know, very sort of improvisational. Willie liked to not rehearse. He wanted to be, you know, just sort of very organic and different all the time, you know. And where Steve's, you know, playing with the Eaters, it's really, you know, the tunes come front and center, right? They're great, well written, and you want to execute those. And you want to make sure that you get the right vibes and the right shifts and all the right, you know, the right feelings across. So it's it's just a very different approach, you know. And I enjoy this approach more. You know, it's you know, I don't, you know, because, you know, I don't have a real jazz background, and so improvisation's not my strong point. But, you know, it's about the songs, you know, and playing, you know, really making the song speak and getting the right pieces, you know.
Well, you know, in another song, 1,000 Ships, it opens with your drumming intro, and that's a ballad, and it rocks, man.
well, I mean, it's funny, you know, it's just like, you know, so in the early punk days, there was a lot of, you know, sort of pounding on the toms instead of snare and hi-hat. So I have a lot of experience of that, and somebody that's really great at that, that's not a punk drummer, but is a great blues drummer, is Mick Fleetwood. Right. You know, and so I kind of try to think of some of that stuff as well, because it's just, he was such a great individual stylistic player, and the grooves were really unique. And so I try to not always do, you know, the regular thing to do. And
Right.
Steve encourages that, which is great.
Well, you know, Steve, your jangly guitar is all over this album, and it's a wonder. Superman's Hand. It's a Tom Petty-ish song. Tell me about that.
Well, some of these are gifts from the void. I'll just start playing, jamming with myself, or get a rhythm going, and comes from the ether, Planet 7, you know, and you know, we met Adam, and we were looking for a strong guitar player and singer, and Dave brought him up, and Adam came down. It was great right away. And the super thing that I found out about him is he's an excellent songwriter, and he's got some fabulous songs. And hopefully we'll go into and make another record, and we're gonna have a lot of his tunes on that record because they're just great. They really are.
All right, now tell me another jangly guitar. You know, most of your songs start off with a jangly hook, guitar hook, and just take off from there. You know, Hop Sing said, many people don't know that Hop Sing was F at the Ponderosa, is that part of, is that part of your tongue-in-cheek thing?
Well, no, actually, it's part of my mumbling until something comes from Planet 8, and I capture it. So I was just putting Hop Sing Says into the rhythm, and then it turned into a song. So,
are you still a Bonanza fan?
Actually, I'm not a Bonanza fan. I dug Bonanza only for Hop Sing.
Hey, that's a rockin' tune, and I love those backing vocals too. Sha la la, that's just killer, man.
Yeah, the audience really digs it.
Okay, now let's talk about End of the World Girl, another opening jangly guitar with power chords. This song explodes right out of the gate. Great hook, great encore song. That's I thought immediately. That's what you should leave them with. What do you think about what's about that song? Tell me about that.
Well, it's on our new record, Monsters and Angels. You can get that on Wicked Cool Records. Yeah, and I hope everybody picks it up. But the song is just, I'd really like to take credit for all this stuff. It's coming from some of the great songwriters. I don't know, like Through the Void. They've got to get it out, and their energy's still floating around. And, I mean, Paul McCartney and a lot of other writers do the same thing. They're just kind of mumbling, and you can see that on, was it Let It Be? Yeah. And they just mumbling back and forth, and people are writing down everything they do, so they don't have to worry about jumping for a pen before it leaves. They're still using cassette players, those guys.
What's your website address? You were just talking about this. People want to find out what you're doing, want to hear the new Monsters and Angels, want to buy it. Where do they go?
nervouseaters.net.
I'm not going to say it, but maybe my favorite song, Want It Like Before. Power chord song, real punk, right out of the gate. Tell me about that one.
Well, we just needed, you know, rock songs. We always needed power pop, and that was an earlier tune, and we decided to put it on the record. So that had been around for a little bit. So it's another one I just start, and sometimes they come in pieces. Sometimes a whole tune will come together, like Loretta. I wrote that walking across Boston Common. I started a beat in my head and mumbling. Before I knew it, I was at the Rat looking for a cassette machine to put it down. And that's how it happened.
Now, you know, I like 1,000 Ships. Tell me about that. I read there's a David Bowie connection. Is that fact or fiction?
It's true. You know, he's in the lyrics. Margaret Mary Jones, that was his mother, had a little baby Bowie. So that's how that all goes together.
Now, what about Evelyn? You brought that up before. Is that a real person? It's a slow ballad. And where did Zombies and Sapphires? What's that in reference to?
Well, it's like Peter Gabriel will he'll either look in magazines or he'll just put a striking sentence in there that will make a visual in the listener's head. And I use that sometimes, and a songwriting tool, and that's what that is. It just to set up an image in your head.
Well, halfway through the song, man, the band just takes it up a notch. And, you know, if you people want to hear how well the band plays together, that's a great place to start. You know, how'd you make your voice sound like that? Sort of like a half whisper with an edge. What kind of effect are you using? What?
Makes a megaphone out of paper.
Really?
He does that at rehearsal. No, he did in the studio. They actually have technology for that kind of stuff.
But we didn't use that in the studio. What I did was I had an old telephone, and I cut the telephone receiver in half, and the part you speak in. It's a lot of harmonica players kind of make a bullet mic out of. It's a cheap way to make a bullet mic. Anyways, I took the guts out of that and got an egg timer. And then it just fit in perfect. And I taped it around, and it has great 2 leads, positive and negative, so I could put it on a 1/4-inch wire with a 1/4-inch jack on it, and that was my mic. So
Wow.
we stuck that next to a Neumann or something, so the engineer wouldn't freak out. And but Jack was great, and he went for it. And so we used it on the first verse. We used it on the whole song, but we just kept it on the first verse and a little bit on the last verse.
And of course, David's drumming drives the song again. Just killer. You guys play so well together. Now, I want to ask you, what's the new version of Last Chance about? You originally had that in the 1976 Elektra album. Why redo an old song?
Because Brad thought it would be a great idea, and so did Steve Berkowitz, because he figured not a whole lot of people heard the song on the Elektra record. So he said, they probably will, a greater audience, the passive audience will hear the song. If we do it again, it's a good song, so let's do the final version of it, and that's what we did.
Well, you know, the old one is 10 seconds shorter than the new one. How did this happen?
I don't know, just the way it happened.
All right, just curious. Hey, what's the difference between the old version and the new version?
Probably the instrumental and the chorus. I think that's about it.
Do you have any upcoming gigs?
Yeah, we're playing with Barron's, Whitfield, at
Regent Theater on the 16th of this month of December.
December?
Yep.
And what's any gigs after that?
You're playing with Willie Niles.
And that's been moved to February, and I'm not sure of the date.
Second,
February 2nd at the
winery.
City Winery.
Good.
Boston.
You know what February 3rd was. You never want to have a gig that day. That's the day Buddy Holly died.
Oh,
Oh, that's a shame.
The album cover, I want to talk about that. You have a photo of the local artist Wayne Vienne's art piece on the cover. And it was designed by Adam right there.
yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, we were looking for something. We looked at a lot of stuff, and it's if you've ever had to produce something that's going to go out into the public, you have to have permission from people, and they want money. And so we were thinking, Monsters and Angels, we're going to find a great thing. And we started looking, and it was just brutal. I mean, it was just, you couldn't get the permission, or they wanted a lot of money, and they wouldn't bring. And I have always thought that Wayne was a great artist.
He is.
And it just something about his sensibility just made me think, this is worth asking him if the title of this album does anything for him. And so I got in contact. I know Linda well, because Linda and I are doing the Back Porch Carousel thing together. And Linda's they're still good buddies. And
Linda Viennes?
Yeah, Linda Viennes. And Linda put me in touch with Wayne, and I said, we got this album coming out on Wicked Cool. This is the title, Monsters and Angels. You got anything that you think would do it? He sent me about 10 things. I sent 3 of them to Steve and was like, yes, this is it. So we got the image of the monster on the front and the beautiful angel doll on the back. And I did a little bit of graphic stuff on them, to kind of make it into a package, and that's how we got there.
Steve, I want to tell you what I asked him for a quote about you, and this is what Adam said. Steve is an urban poet with a unique rock and roll voice that cuts through the guitars and goes straight to the gut. His lyrics paint whole movies, and on stage, he simply stands and delivers. And then he told me a great story. Once in a club in New Haven, Steve introduced himself on stage as Rat Weasel. When that didn't go over too well, he introduced me as Ham Bone. That didn't go over too well either. What are your recollections of that event?
Well, I think it was Weasel Vermin.
Oh, Weasel Vermin, fucking A, yeah.
So to correct him.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I got that right now.
And the only one I couldn't come up with a name was for Brad. It was some long, convoluted name. I called David Spider Murphy. We got a laugh with the first one, but after that went downhill. So comedy and rock and roll doesn't work for us. It's great for the fools, but it doesn't work for us. So. Immediately stopped that. But just quickly about Adam's work, he did the whole bit and then brought it to us one day just before practice here at Dave's house, and we were floored by it. It was just, he's such a great graphic artist. Did an excellent job.
Thank you, guys.
Incredible. And we rely on him for all that.
Throughout your career, most of your own songs are about relationships with women. How does Monsters and Angels follow this path too?
Well, there's some monsters and then there's some angels. Yeah. And men too. That's why I said husbands and wives. So I didn't get like a Revere pan whacked in the back of my head as I walked in the kitchen on the way to the stage. But that's really not about boys and girls. But I always dug Evil Lynn. So,
is there a real Evelyn?
There's probably a few, but I wouldn't name it right. Somebody right here for sure.
Steve, can you give any advice to young musicians trying to create a brand and stay focused and productive for decades, and how to get your music heard in these tough post-pandemic times?
Well, first of all, go back as far as you can. I was lucky enough that my father worked in Washington recording the Senate, and he had a lathe upstairs that burned acetates, and so he did a lot of recording of Cape Cod history. He was a historian as well, and he put a lot to acetates. And as a young kid, I would just be standing on a box watching him do it. And he had a Bogan record player that played everything from 33s to 78s, and a lot of old 33s and 78 records that had just everything on it: blues, jazz, Cool Water by the Sons of the Pioneers. And so I spent a lot of time up there by myself listening to everything. And as a young kid, that would be a great thing to do: listen to as much variety as you can. And but some kids are just born with it out of the box. I'm not saying me, but a lot of really sharp kids coming up with their own deal. So it's a gift from Planet 12, I think it comes from.
Let me ask you the final question that I ask all of my guests on Wachtelligence. What was the first concert you ever attended?
Take it away.
Moby Grape, Procol Harum, and Bagatelle with Willie Alexander at the Beacon Theater in New York City.
Where was that, Adam?
Actually, it was the Anderson Theater. It was before the Fillmore opened up. It was down the block from the Fillmore. It was the Anderson Theater.
David?
I saw, I think it was Slade and Martha Hoople, I think it was. Yeah, it might have been the Orpheum or Music Hall. I can't remember now because it was so long ago, but it was just like, you know, the life-changing experience for sure. You know, love that stuff.
Well, I used to work for the Surf in the early days as one of their bands, and they had a Surf Hyannis. And one of the earliest groups I can remember is The Lost, and Willie was the lead singer. And they were just tremendous. That band was tremendous. And Dick Summer played their song a lot on AM WBZ radio, which everything was in mono in those days. The Animals and all the British Invasion. And also the Barbarians were from Provincetown. I was in a music shop, just pestering the people as I always did. And they walked in with suits on, the whole bit. And I really hadn't seen like long hair like that as a young kid. So I kind of, my jaw hit the floor a little bit. And I just stared at them. They did their thing and then they left. But Barbarians and The Lost.
Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. Adam, David, thanks for being on my show. It was wonderful to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Wachtelligence. You can connect with me on Facebook at Wachtelligence. Thanks to my producers, my son Harrison and David Schwartz, and Harvey Brooks for my theme song. Don't forget to subscribe.
I don't care what you think of me. Don't need no jailer to set me free. Don't want strangers filling up my cup. Don't need no advisor to show me down from up.